Recovery is a matter of recovering your soul and your humanity and your life. It's not about even recovering your brain. Even though we're using brain rewiring to recover, it's not about brain function or how good we feel in the moment. I have a story I want to tell you about this because this is really common when I work with people and they're in recovery and they're at a point where, again, your brain has been super stressed for a long time. If you've been in limbic recovery, your brain has been pushed to beyond the max for decades, most likely. And when we finally calm down, a lot of times our brain is just like, oh God, it just turns off for a little while, right? And that's a healthy part of recovery. But a lot of people see that as bad or scary or like the opposite of progress, but that is progress. And it's also just not even what recovery is about. I just remembered this part of my journey yesterday. So I rewired my brain. It took me 3 years, right? Right after that, COVID hit. I realized my marriage was over. And it was a crazy situation. And it took me about a year. The next year, I was finally getting to the point where I needed to move out and I needed to like get my business off the ground and really start I needed to actually really focus on making money. And because of the intensity of the situation, it was, for me, far worse than it's the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. It was worse than all my perfect storms and limbic impairment and all that put together. It was so bad. So I was in a place of profound trauma at the time and my complex PTSD was raging. I had like 5 to 10% at most of my brain function the year that I got my business off the ground. A lot of the workshops I did on 5 to 10% of my brain function. They're pretty good too, but like and I built my business successfully. I moved out. I, went through the process of divorce. Like I did a lot of stuff on 5 to 10% of my brain function. And I share that story just to remind you, like what that taught me was this process, like being human is not about brain function. Like our ability to be healthy and function and do things doesn't come from our brains. It comes through them. And that ultimately our lives are driven by our souls far more than our minds or our brains. And you can do a lot with very little brain function. And ultimately recovery is not about that. I had recovered. I was going through a lot. I was in a profound place at the time of trauma, but I still considered myself recovered during that time, and overall I had the knowledge I needed to be able to heal what I was going through and get my brain function back after that. So I have it now and I've had it, since then, but that's not the point of recovery. And it's not an indicator of how recovered you are, how healthy you are, how things are going. It's nothing to be afraid of. Ultimately, like brain function it's dependent on like how much dose we're getting and how stressful our situation is and like what part of recovery we're in. It's, in a sense, it's not that important, right? So I had a lot of people will come to me and they're like, oh, I've got cognitive it's, and it's like, can I rewire this? Yes, absolutely, you can. But also know that it's not a threat. It's okay if you lose access to certain parts of your cognition during recovery. Your brain does need to turn off, and ultimately there's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the human experience. Love you guys.